China's leader Xi Jinping at the Kremlin on Tuesday, meeting with Russian counterpart President Vladimir Putin. It's the second day of Xi's state visit to Moscow. This is the Chinese leader's first trip to Russia since the country invaded Ukraine last year. On the agenda, Beijing's 12-point peace plan for the war. Notably absent from the proposal is any requirement for Russia to withdraw its troops from Ukraine. Putin has welcomed the plan, saying it, quote, correlates to the point of view of the Russian Federation.
За углубление российско-китайского всеобъемлющего партнерства и стратегического взаимодействия.
为深化俄中全面战略协作伙伴关系.
За процветание и благополучие народов России и КНР.
为了俄罗斯和中国人民繁荣昌盛.
干杯.
干杯.
Despite the two leaders toasting their friendship, Beijing has claimed to be a neutral party when it comes to the war in Ukraine. It's a position many countries in the West view with extreme skepticism. In response to the meeting in Moscow, the U.S. says China has not shown any meaningful impartiality in its efforts to negotiate peace.
I don't think you can reasonably look at China as impartial in any way. They haven't condemned this. This invasion. They haven't stopped buying Russian oil and Russian energy. So now if China wants to play a constructive role here in this conflict, then they ought to press Russia to pull its troops out of Ukraine and Ukrainian sovereign territory. They should urge President Putin to cease bombing cities, hospitals, and schools, to stop the war crimes and the atrocities, and end the war today.
By Tuesday evening in Moscow, Putin and Xi had signed two joint pacts on stronger economic ties and energy cooperation. These agreements also come just days after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Putin for war crimes in Ukraine, a detail left out of the Chinese state-run media coverage of Xi's visit. Beijing's ties with Moscow have only become more important given continued U.S.-led sanctions on Russia since the beginning of the war. This places Xi, who has just been handed an unprecedented third term as president, in the driver's seat in his proclaimed friendship with Putin.
He also uses the word trust a lot, which itself I think is a little bit, revealing in that the relationship so far has not really been based on trust. It's based on a coincidence of interests. Russia is the junior partner in the relationship between the two, that it means that the so-called no-limits partnership essentially does have limits, but those limits increasingly are set by Beijing, and the message is, well, you're just going to have to trust us.
Following his Moscow trip, Xi is reportedly set to hold a virtual meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky as Beijing continues working to position itself in the role of peacemaker. But despite China's messages of peace and Putin's praise for the country's plan, there is still little sign of a diplomatic breakthrough over Ukraine. Eason Pan and Joyce Zhen for Taiwan Plus.